Good morning, everyone. Before we commence today's official proceedings, on behalf of us all at the ROA, I'd just like to take a moment to send our best wishes, thoughts and prayers to Graham Lee and his family at this very difficult time. I'd like to declare the 79th Ordinary Annual General Meeting of the Racehorse Owners Association officially open. I'm Charlie Liverton, Chief Executive of the ROA, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us today, be that here at Kempton Park or online. The meeting is going to begin with the formal AGM, which will be followed by the President's speech, and then we'll dedicate the remainder of the meeting for Q&As. Thanks to those members who've submitted questions in advance of the meeting. During the meeting, those of you in the room will also have the opportunity to pose further questions if you wish. If you are online, please use the tab at the top of your screen and include your name, membership number, and question. We'll now move on swiftly to the official procedures of the meeting and the resolutions to approve. The notice convening this meeting is set out on page 3 of the annual report, which has been circulated to all members. For the purposes of this meeting, it's taken as read. We'll deal with the items set out in the annual report under notice of meeting. And as in previous years, and according to best corporate practice, I'll announce the proxy vote after each resolution. And I'd like just to remind you that in accordance with the ROA's Articles of Association, each of today's resolutions are ordinary resolutions, and so therefore require a majority vote. Resolution 1, to ratify by way of ordinary resolution the board's nomination of Charlie Parker as President and Alan Spence as Vice President for the coming year. We've received 89 proxy forms supporting Resolution 1 and 15 against. I put the resolution to the meeting. Those in favour? Those against? I declare the resolution carried. Resolution 2, to receive by way of ordinary resolution the results of the election to fill vacancies on the board. The board member who retired this year is Gay Kellaway, and she has generously stood for re-election. There are 5 candidates who also stood for election to the board. As there were 3 vacancies on the board and 5 candidates contesting these 3 places, a ballot was held. This was organised on behalf of the ROA by Civica, who have provided us with the results. There were 974 valid votes counted, and I'm pleased to inform the meeting that the following have been elected onto the board: Gay Kellaway, Dr. Jim Walker, and Stephen Appleby. We've received 98 proxy forms supporting Resolution 2 and 6 against. I put the resolution to the meeting, namely to receive the results of the election to fill vacancies on the board. Those in favour? Those against? I declare the resolution carried. Resolution 3, to confirm and adopt by way of ordinary resolution the report and financial statements for the year ended 31st of March 2023. We've received 100 proxy forms supporting Resolution 3 and 4 against. I now put the resolution to the meeting. Those in favour? Those against? I declare the resolution carried. Resolution 4, to appoint by way of ordinary resolution RSM UK Audit LLP auditors in accordance with Section 485 of the Companies Act 2006. We've received 100 proxy forms supporting Resolution 4 and 4 against. I now put the resolution to the meeting. Those in favour? Those against? I declare the resolution carried. Resolution 5 is to authorise by way of ordinary resolution the ROA board to fix the remuneration of the auditors. We've received 101 proxy forms supporting Resolution 5 and 3 against. I now put the resolution to the meeting. Those in favour? Those against? I declare the resolution carried. So that concludes the formal part of the meeting. I'd now like to invite your President, Charlie Parker, to address the meeting.
Oh, blimey. Thank you, Charlie. Good morning, everybody. I thought I'd get away without glasses, but I'm afraid age has got me. Thank you to those who've joined us here at Kempton Park today and everybody online. I'd like to start by congratulating and welcoming our new elected directors, Steve Appleby and Jim Walker, and Gay Kellaway, who has been re-elected for a second term, all of whom are here today. This is my 4th year as president of the ROA, and I think it is fair to say that it has been another year of significant change and challenge, despite the restrictions of COVID being largely behind us. The ongoing troubles in Ukraine and the Middle East are, of course, deeply troubling, and the significant rise in interest rates and spiralling cost of living is making things tough for all of us in the racing industry. Racecourses on the whole are finding it more difficult to attract crowds outside the most high-profile meetings, although there has been some positive signs on that front recently. Many trainers are struggling to make ends meet, and owners at all levels are thinking hard about further investment in their bloodstock. Throw in the risk posed by animal rights activists and the hugely significant concerns around gambling review and affordability checks, and it's a pretty heady cocktail of issues that we are all facing. However, the sport is better placed to deal with these developments given the new governance structure agreed last November. The Members' Committee has been disbanded, and the 2 new key bodies, the Commercial Committee and the Integrity Advisory Committee, have been created. The ROA has played a key role within this structure. These changes are the outcome of a process that started over 18 months ago when Joe Samaran-Smith took over as chair of the BHA, and should allow the sport to create a collaborative approach to key issues and, of course, long-term strategy. The creation and implementation of the new strategy will not be without its challenges, but the new structure creates an opportunity to kick-start the industry, always accepting the difficulties that the current economic conditions are providing. Already, the industry has managed to reach unanimous agreement on the detail of the 2024 fixture list, which included some significant changes and shows that what can be achieved through collaboration. With this industry-wide support, next year's slightly slimmed-down fixture list will see a new structure with a premier tier of racing highlighting the most significant fixtures and an increase in the competitiveness of racing at all levels, which in turn should drive greater income streams for all of those who invest in it. Most of you will be aware of the broad detail, but in very brief headlines, 170 plus premier race days will be run in 2024, which amounts to approximately 12% of the fixture list. They will feature high-quality competitive racing, which can stand out from the rest of the fixture list and showcase the sport to new and existing audiences. Increased funding and higher minimum values will be in place at these fixtures, with no race run less than 20,000 on the flat and 15,000 over jumps. A number of these fixtures will include a Class 5 race and a Class 4 race over jumps. Premier race days on Saturdays are being given room to breathe in a 2-hour window between 2 and 4 o'clock, with other fixtures moved to earlier or later start times. This is good news, but my challenge is that the sports needs to promote these changes effectively in order to attract new audiences and investors, owners, racegoers, bettors, and others. What does the promotion look like, and how are we going to persuade more people to engage in our great sport? How will premier racing look different on television? How will the betting operators highlight it to their customers? Will it look or feel different on the racecourse? Will we be able to engage the interest of non-racing media? Anyone who is a racehorse owner is an optimist. As we know, our outgoings will almost inevitably exceed our income. But from where I am standing, even as one of those optimists, progress on the promotional side of premier racing has been slow. The new era needs a proper plan for identifying what the new racing product looks like. How will it be promoted? Who is it targeted at? It is all well and good having made progress on the fixture list, but a great deal of work and inspiration is needed before the opportunity can be seized. Most importantly, we need to identify new untapped income streams to really make both premier and core racing fly. The current plan is based around growing existing income streams, which should benefit the sport to the tune of over £90 million over 5 years. However, whilst other sports have attracted vast sums from new investors, to date British racing, excluding the bloodstock world, has lagged behind, and something we must correct. It is also vital that core racing product is given its own promotional support and funding. Simply moving existing limited resources from one race type to another will not achieve anywhere what is needed. Funding pressure at the core level could be severely undermine the whole of racing's ecosystem, leading to a fall in owners, horses in training, levy income, and fan engagement. I urge the strategy teams not to lose sight of what keeps racing ticking. As we approach 2024, I thought it would be useful to take a look at some key stats. Current number of horses in training is holding up pretty well versus the last couple of years, albeit slightly down on pre-COVID. Total prize money in 2022 at $182.5 million was the highest it's ever been. 2023 figure, when it finally comes out, will probably exceed that. Levy yield exceeded expectations at $99 million for the 22-23 period. Racecourse attendances in the third quarter of 23 were 4.5% higher than the same period in 22, boosted by bigger crowds at some of the major fixtures and festivals. However, year-to-date racegoer numbers to the end of September are still around about 7.5% behind last year, so there is a lot of work to be done there. Engagement and promotion aimed at the younger demographic remains sporadic at best. When done well, it can be a brilliant tool to hook people into racing at an early age, but there seems to be no real joined-up plan to supercharge this fabulous opportunity. I want to now turn to two critical issues related to betting. The first of these is the present and future danger of affordability checks. As part of the Gambling Act Review White Paper presented by the Secretary of State, Lucy Fraser, in April, the principle of these affordability checks was raised. Whilst no final proposals have been tabled, betting operators, partly to avoid huge fines for allowing customers to bet beyond their means, have already been introducing stringent loss or stakes limits for many punters and demanding detailed financial information from those people to prove that they have the financial wherewithal to allow them to continue to have a bet. These checks could include assessing whether people are at risk or harm based on their postcode or their job title, and see bettors having to prove that they can afford their hobby if they sustain losses as low as £1.37 a day. It's ridiculous. Many of those already impacted have understandably refused to share their private information and are considering either moving to unregulated black market betting sites or stopping betting altogether. A proportion of these people are racehorse owners too, for whom having a flutter on their own horse is an integral part of the ownership experience. Needless to say, this could have disastrous consequences on horse racing, both through a significant risk that horse race betting levy will fall dramatically as people bet elsewhere, and some owners decide that part of the fun of racing is taken away. The Gambling Commission has recently stated that the threat of the black market has been overstated and racing does not accept that any problem gambling exists. This is simply not true. What we do want is a sensible approach to the pastime that millions enjoy with no negative consequences at all. Clear segregation of our betting product from online slots, for example, and a joined-up approach to support the very small proportion of the population, roughly 0.3%, who are impacted by gambling. On that basis, I would ask you all to sign the horse racing's petition urging government to abandon the planned implementation of affordability checks. There are links to the petition on the ROA site and the Racing Post site. Tens of thousands of people have already done that. I think, as of yesterday, we're up to about 85,000 signatures. Once that total reaches 100,000, the petition will be considered for debate in Parliament. So to paraphrase Lord Kitchener, your industry needs you. The second betting-related issue I want to mention is the review of the levy itself, the first such review since 2017. This is also critical for several reasons, including the fact that in real terms, the yield is falling further and further behind the target that was set 6 years ago. We have been hoping for a combined approach from the racing industry and the bookmakers, which would carry significant weight, with a large increase in the level of funds flowing into the sport being the ultimate goal. The BHA, on behalf of the racing industry and the Betting Gaming Council, have been negotiating for months, but after some public disagreement between the two in the summer, with the BGC initially publishing significantly inflated figures, progress has been slow. There is actually a meeting taking place right now between the BGC and our industry group. So let's hope a deal can be signed off between us and the government rubber stamp it. Moving on to the ROA itself and our recently published annual report, I wanted to deal with the deficit recorded over the last 2 financial years, totaling 460,000, and put it into some context. In the 2021 financial year, the ROA made a surplus of 160,000, meaning we were unable to invest in many of the projects that the members so enjoy, partly through COVID. We caught up with that level of investment in 22, and in addition, we continued to invest in our technology platform, and we launched the new VAT Solutions business as a startup service. We believe that this service will prove to be a great member benefit in the medium term. Over the 2 years from 2020 to 2022, the ROA achieved a break-even position. Since the start of 2020, many businesses and organisations have struggled to maintain income levels as a result of the COVID suspensions. The ROA has not been exempt from these pressures. Membership levels reduced, firstly due to members being unable to use the benefits of the racecourse badge and therefore lapse membership, and secondly due to pressures of inflation, which have forced many members to give up horse ownership. During this period, in the face of declining membership, we did not feel it was appropriate to increase the annual fee, despite the ever-increasing costs across the business driven by inflation. There were also some one-off factors in 2023's results. The VAT Solutions business, as a startup, produced a deficit, both with delays on onboarding new clients and the processing of registrations through HMRC. I'm pleased to say that VAT Solutions is now in a positive cash flow position. We also incurred some staff changes, and obviously inflation rising meant that the planned cost reduction in the Owner Breeder magazine didn't take place. However, I am pleased to confirm that the 7 months unaudited accounts to the 31st of October show a materially significant increase in the prior period. The business has generated in excess of £150,000 of EBITDA, and the VAT solution clients have continued to grow, and costs are being well managed. Over the past year, the ROA has strengthened its executive team and continues to represent owners both on industry initiatives and on their membership requirements. Internally, the focus remains on the key areas of our strategy, including the development and evolution of our data technology project, and we continue to build on the work of the corporate governance review, strengthening the skill set of the organisation at all levels. The ROA team continues to represent owners' views, ensuring that your voice is heard across all parts of the industry and on behalf of all owners, regardless of their level of investment and involvement. The team spends a considerable amount of time in trainers' yards and on racecourses, speaking with our key stakeholders, providing updates, but most importantly, listening to feedback. The challenges for racing and specifically for owners will continue over the next 12 months and beyond, but we should be encouraged that racing is now working more closely together, and the ROA is at the heart of that endeavour. As I hope you will have picked up from this speech this morning, at an industry level, the ROA remains at the forefront of the big conversations with our stakeholder partners. Our role is to ensure that owners' voices are at the heart of these important discussions and that your needs and requirements help shape the agenda and are reflected in the wider industry strategy. Finally, I look forward to seeing many of you at the ROA Awards dinner on the 7th of December at the Royal Lancaster Hotel to celebrate the horses that have lit up our tracks during this year. Thank you. I'll now hand back to Charlie Liverton for question and answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. We now turn to the final part of the meeting and an opportunity for those of you in the room to ask your board questions. questions, and of course we have taken some questions online, which I'm sure we'll be able to get to as well. So I put it to the floor. A raise of hands, please, if anybody has a question that they would like to put. Microphone's on its way.
I hate public speaking. I had an incident happen of one of my horses in a race at Chelmsford on the 16th of October. I believe it's the 16th of October. They ran the race. You're probably aware of this. The horse who was favourite, it was a mile and a quarter mile. We don't know what happened. We still don't know what happened. Went down at the winning post in a by round. The horse was covered, obviously, sheet round him. And obviously, our jockeys didn't know the horse had gone down because it was behind them. They went round. They got to the winning post, or furlong out maybe. They said they'd probably void because they hadn't moved the barrier, so the horses could go round to get to the winning post, and they had time. The issue I've got is when it was actually Safi Osborne, it was on the horse, coming down the chute. It had banged into a rail quite badly on the right-hand side. Safi nearly came off. She was lucky to stay on. The horse was definitely not happy. Going down to the post, just was not happy at all. Two things I would like to know. One, why didn't a vet look at that horse at the stalls? Because you could see it wasn't right. And two, nobody seems to know what happens when a race is void. I phoned the BHA, I phoned the ROA, and I've got nothing at all told me other than it was called void, which is fine. It's called void. The horse got up, apparently, and walked away. So I still don't know what was wrong with the horse. Nobody seemed to know the question I asked is what happens in a void race, i.e. the jockey, put money, the trainer getting to the race, the petrol or whatever you're using to get to the race, your groom to get to the race. Nobody's even informed us, and nobody knew, either BHA or ROA. I'd like some answers as what rules have you got for void races, if there is any, because nobody else seems to know. So that's my question, and I'm quite sure a few other owners. I know it's unusual, but it's got to be answered. Somebody should be able to say what the rules and regulations are. But they phoned the BHA and the ROA, and I'm not even an answer back. That was in October. That's it.
So thank you very much for your question.
Say what I had to say.
Thank you for your question. This is very much a regulatory matter, so I'm afraid in our position we wouldn't be able to support you directly here, but certainly we can pick this up with you and make sure that you get a full and proper answer from the BHA, who are the regulators of the sport and would be able to review the process on the race day itself and talk to those officials that were at the race meeting to understand better the situation that you've just outlined. So apologies that we won't be able to give you a direct answer to your question here and now, but absolutely we will pick this up with you after and make sure that you get a full response from the BHA. Okay, yeah.
I 100% agree with you. We seem in racing to hide things. We seem to brush things under the carpet. And, you know, I sometimes want answers. And I find that Chelmsford, and a lot of trainers are telling me this, that horses are getting injured. I had one come back from there. That racetrack, and we all know it, and we hide this in racing. That racetrack needs resurfacing. Without a doubt, it needs resurfacing. They bodged it up, and I really feel, I know it's to do with the BHA, it's not really much to do with us, but we as owners should be pushing this forward and getting onto the BHA that things got to change. We don't make things transparent. We don't find out about your horse of the void races. We don't seem to know anything. And you do call up. And as a trainer, it's very, very, very frustrating. And this happens on a regular basis. And we hide things. we don't want racing to seem bad or anything like that, but it's not, you don't have to make it officially in the papers, but we really need to know, as owners and trainers, we need to know. We don't get enough information.
Absolutely, please be sure I wasn't trying to hide anything at all. I was actually
But we
trying to make
do,
sure that we
do.
get a full and honest answer.
Yeah, I know as the ROA we
from
do
the
the best for
BHA, so
owners, but we need to
I
push
don't-
this with the BHA. We need to be more transparent. It's simple as that.
Well, maybe Gay, as a trainer, could support you in this as well.
But the thing is, nobody's got an answer.
Exactly.
I have tried to get answers. The BHA, the ROA, never even come back to it. And they didn't know. They said, oh, we'll have to find out. There must be something written somewhere. I mean, it's ridiculous. And I'm a known of quite a lot of horses in America, Ireland, and here. I've never known a boy race like this. So somebody's got to say where the rules and regulations that we can even look up to see. Because I'm out of pocket, the trainers are out of pocket, the lads are out of pocket. Don't they get paid? Of course they do. They've got to get paid. So who's paying for it?
Yeah.
The trainer. And
We-
then the owner. So it's all back to me again.
We'll take this up with you afterwards, if we may, and ensure that you get the answer that you're looking for.
Okay.
Anybody else with a question?
So I'll put up a question.
Sam.
So
Sorry, Sam, can we just so that those online can hear? Thank you.
Hi. So obviously I was here as a former board member before I resigned early last year. I'd like to know firstly what the membership numbers are this year. Clearly turnover has gone down significantly, and I would suggest this is not coincidence. There are serious financial issues with the ROA, serious staffing issues with the ROA, ROA board members resigning, and I suspect we'll be hearing that ROA membership numbers are significantly down as well. And that is not surprising with an ownership base that has lost faith in its representative body to do what's best for British racing. This is a serious issue. The ROA chairman sits on the board of the BHA, and he should be doing what's best for British racing and for owners. When I was a member of the board, there was significant conflicts of interest which were ignored. Representatives on BHA boards, which an ROA rep which had a serious conflict of interest, who should not have been on that, and I was laughed at. And I was told that my conflict of interest was representing syndicates and asking for more badges for syndicates. This is not a chairman that takes it seriously, his role as the ROA chairman, and I would strongly suggest he should be standing down. Whose side are you on here? Media rights, rumoured to be in the region of 30 grand a race, and we're having races run for 6 grand at the moment. Where is the push for the transparency? Where is that voice for owners? Where is that voice for shared ownership? I sit on the Racehorse Syndicates Association, of which I've pushed for a long time should be a subcommittee of the ROA, but I've always been handed off by the ROA leaders. Shared ownership is a growing area within racing, and yet we're pushed to one side by this organisation that should be representing shared ownership. And I should add how much shared ownership could do for the ROA in terms of membership numbers. The badge scheme was handled appallingly, cancelled a day before, and I think ROA members deserve better. So I'd like to ask, whose side are you really on, Charlie Parker? Are you on the side of the racecourse? Are you on the side of horsemen?
Thank you, Sam. Well, I'm not conflicted at all. I attended a BHA board meeting yesterday, and conflict of interest is high up on the agenda, and so I'm not conflicted. And I don't know in what guise or possible confliction I could have. Conflict. Whose side am I on? I'm on the side of the owners. I've been in the ROA for a number of years, and prior to that, my family's participation in it. I've been fighting very hard for the owner's position, and the governance review that we managed to get over the line was a direct result of the ROA and me pushing for that strategic change. So I'm very comfortable with my position, and I'm very pleased that the board asked me to stay on for another couple of years as president, and we'll continue to work very hard. As terms of, there were so many bits in that question, Sam. Membership numbers, I'm pleased to say, are on the rebound. They're coming back. and that's very encouraging after a period that...
So what are the figures?
I think we're on about 6,800 members, something like that.
What were they in recent years?
I think that the highest it ever got to pre-COVID was 8,000. I think we're just a tad over that. So membership numbers are coming back, finances are in good, the balance sheet's in good shape, and we are working very hard on all those issues that we just described. So that's my answer, Sam.
And just because that's a very relevant question, Sam, about the membership numbers. About 85% of registered owners are members of the ROA, and that hasn't fluctuated particularly. So yes, we ebb and flow depending on the number of registered owners. That is correct, and there has been a reduction in our membership numbers have gone down. But your question is relevant. We have been on the decline, and absolutely we're looking to build back. Any further questions? Andrew Hetherington.
I'm glad you recognised my name. Thank you very much. I was interested in the comments about the benefits that you get from ROA membership. And in part, I would say is that the announcement that we saw about the changes in free entry into race courses was not very well handled. I think somebody else said it was badly handled. What are the ROA board going to do about trying to ensure that we get the best deals that we can about access to those types of facilities? Pre-COVID, you were welcomed with open arms. Now, you're on the scheme, aren't you? There's your badge, off you go. It's not a great result. And I go to lots of race courses through the scheme. I think that's, there needs to be some improvement on that. I mean, even this week, I thought, well, I'd like to go to Cheltenham. I'm not a member there this year for various different reasons. Friday I can get in, Saturday I can't, Sunday I can get in. Sent an email in, could you give me access to Saturday? No, we're not doing it. So, that's fine. Cheltenham won't get me for 3 days at all. The local businesses in that area won't get the support. We need to find a way of getting better support for owners to be able to support the industry. Because I would have taken some friends. I'd have got in for free. And that's not going to happen now. So better support to provide facilities for owners who invest so much in the sport.
Celia is on our owners working group, so I might ask Celia if you could.
On Cheltenham in particular, as you know, what they regard as the flagship days, sadly, have never been in the RBSO. The festival isn't, Derby Day isn't, Grand National Day isn't. There are a couple of other Champions Day. The Champions meeting isn't also, and I'm afraid that's about race courses digging in their heels. And they already charge a significant amount for the badges, which we give for free. Each badge is charged and therefore comes out of the ROA funds. And I suspect that we would have to pay an uneconomic amount, which would then end up being passed on to members if there was widespread demand for those flagship days. But other than that, we're working really hard on the ownership experience, as always, through benchmarking race courses and through processing member feedback and awarding points to race courses on the basis of that feedback from members, both members who go with a runner and members without a runner, so on owner-trainer facilities, and the way that they are treated on non-racing days. And despite the fact we pay for those badges, I think it's not all race courses see owners in the way that they should, perhaps, as the suppliers and the financiers of the entertainment which is on offer. And there are, as you know, there are some race courses who do value owners and make a real effort to make us feel special and part of a privileged community, which we have paid handsomely to belong to. And there are other race courses which are less welcoming. And I'm really sorry that you've had that experience. And I hope that you have done your feedback on the ROA website about your experience at that racecourse, because in the past I know that when people have given negative feedback about a racecourse, that is passed on to the racecourse for their comment and in the hope that they will then endeavour to improve.
And if I may just follow on, Andrew, again, I think your point's very relevant given where we're trying to take this journey, because we completely agree with your sentiments. What we were trying to achieve was a direct relationship with the racecourse. At the moment, PASS is run by the RCA, a centralised function, which means it's very difficult through technology, through data sharing, to actually provide that personalised service and understanding of who you are, where you attend, and how many times. So by building a direct relationship with the racecourse, we're trying to open up that exact opportunity that you've alluded. We are making progress through the ownership work that we're doing at the moment. We've invested a lot, as Charlie Parker said in his speech, in the technology and CRM system in order that we can try and build out a framework that allows you, as the owner, to go racing to a racecourses where they understand not just how many times you come to them, but the investment you make into industry. So my apologies that the journey isn't as quick as we would have liked it to have been, but that's absolutely the journey we're on, and I hope that in the coming months we'll see some progress in that space. Any further questions from the floor? I think it's quite pertinent, if I may, just to ask Philip Davis a question, if I'm allowed to, around a recent speech this week from Andrew Rhodes, the Chief Executive of the Gambling Commission. It's not unfair to say, Philip, that he gave an opinion that to some in racing was seen as raised a few eyebrows. I just wondered if you could give some reflections from your perspective as to the speech and where we are both in terms of levy reform and the affordability checks.
Yes. I mean, I don't know if I'm speaking here as an ROA person or as a member of Parliament, but I'm sure if I'm going off piste, one of the two Charlies will tell me that I'm going off piste. But I'll give you an honest assessment of, I think, where we are with all this. Look, the affordability check proposals to me are completely unacceptable. They are counterproductive. They're not really going to succeed in what the objective is, which is to help with problem gambling. This sort of one amount for everybody is bonkers, really. I mean, there'll be some people who actually, below the affordability levels, checks, won't be able to afford what they're spending. I mean, it's completely bonkers. I made a speech in Parliament the other week, and I actually gave an illustration of a potential owner and how ludicrous this is. And I made the illustration that you might have somebody who owns perhaps 10 horses. They may make a capital investment each year of around £1 million in buying those horses without any affordability checks. They probably then spend about £250,000 a year on training fees without any affordability checks. But if they lose £2,000 in 90 days betting on those horses, they're going to have intrusive affordability checks. Now, you don't have to be, it seems to me, you don't have to be a genius to work out that that's completely nuts. I mean, it's completely bonkers, that kind of proposal. And that's what we are, battling. And that's why it's really important when Charlie said we want people to sign the petition that's been set up to get it to 100,000 so we can keep batting against this with the minister. The 2 points I would make. I'm pretty certain. I know Stuart Andrew as the minister and Lucy Fraser, the Secretary of State, who's got one of the Newmarket courses, the July course in her constituency. I'm absolutely adamant, and of course the Prime Minister's got about 16 trainers in his constituency in Midland. They do not want to damage horse racing. There's no question about that. They don't want to damage horse racing. They are not the problem. The problem is the Gambling Commission, and Andrew Rhodes sort of slightly let the cat out of the bag, really, in his speech the other week. When first of all, it seemed to come as a shock to him that racing relies a lot on gambling for its income. That seemed to have previously passed him by, and thought really that wasn't an issue. It wasn't his problem to worry about that kind of thing. Well, I think it is. The whole thing of these things is that it's about proportionality and balance. And my fear is that the Gambling Commission are sort of in effect pursuing a zero COVID strategy, where you try and get to zero problem gamblers, rather than actually saying, look, there'll always be some people who have a problem, but we need to find the right balance. And that's the issue. The the upshot of it all is, and I think we've got to be realistic about this. I don't want to see these affordability checks. I think they're a nonsense. But the chances of them being abolished altogether are slim, to be honest. I mean, this is the government and the Gambling Commission have been doing this, working on this for years. Their gambling white paper and their review of the Gambling Act. This is in effect the sort of flagship part of it, the sort of affordability checks. If they were to abandon it altogether, there'd be nothing left pretty much in that space. And as I always say to people, politicians don't make logical decisions, they make political decisions. And the chances of them abandoning the whole thing seem to me to be remote. And so what we've got to try and do in the best way possible, I mean, yes, if we can get rid of them altogether, absolutely fantastic. But on the basis that that's unlikely, I think what we've got to try and do is we've got to try and undermine this sort of blanket proposal that's there. And try and have carve-outs wherever it's possible to say, look, this is ludicrous. You can't possibly be targeting these people, and that's why, because the ROA, is there to represent owners, we occasionally want to do the best for racing, but occasionally any membership organisation needs to be slightly parochial. It's why we've put forward a submission to the Gambling Commission as part of the review that owners, people who are registered owners with at least a full horse in ownership, should be exempt from affordability checks, because surely, to goodness, anybody can say that somebody who is paying X amount for a horse, many thousands of pounds to be having that horse in training, shouldn't be subject to an affordability check at hundreds of pounds over a month or £2,000 over 90 days. I mean, those owners cannot be the people the Gambling Commission are seeking to protect. And so we need to try and find as many sort of carve-outs as we can, so that even if the government and the Gambling Commission do press on with affordability checks in some sense, we can weaken it to a sufficient extent that doesn't damage horse racing. On the levy point, the government have always made clear that if they made an assessment in the white paper as to how much racing they anticipated racing might lose in income from the affordability checks in the white paper, I think they grossly underestimated what that impact will be, but they did put an impact in there. And in the white paper, the government did also say that they would look to increase the amount of money to racing through the levy to make up for the shortfall that they saw happening as affordability checks. We need to hold them to that. I'm not sure that they fully understand how much the affordability checks will impact on racing's income, but they have made that promise that they will put it right through the levy. And our job in all parts of the racing industry is to make sure we hold the government to that promise.
Thank you, Philip. Stephen Astaire. Stephen, if you could just wait for the microphone, please. Thank you very much.
Philip, presumably on-course betting in cash would negate affordability checks.
There's no...
Yes, there's no... The government's proposals on affordability checks only apply to online gambling. They don't apply on course. They don't apply in betting shops. However, there already are, and I think Charlie alluded to this in his speech, there are already affordability checks taking place in places like betting shops under the existing regime that the Gambling Commission are sort of are encouraging with bookmakers now. But what the government's white paper does not deal with anything other than online gambling. And so one of the arguments the government has made is hopefully it will improve things in betting shops, for example, where some of these checks are already taking place. I think the other thing that I should mention that I pushed on in this debate in the House of Commons, which I think the racing industry generally might also want to focus on, is that I think that there's certainly an argument for saying that games of skill, such as horse racing, sports betting, etc., should be treated differently to games of chance like roulette. And at the moment, neither the Gambling Commission nor the government are proposing to treat games of skill and games of chance differently. But I think even if the government and the Gambling Commission press on with affordability checks, I genuinely think that if we make a cogent case, we can score some runs by saying, well, if you are going to go ahead with it, please treat games of skill differently to games of chance, to get a carve-out, in effect, for sports betting in general and horse racing in particular.
Can I just check, Andy, if there's any questions have come in online since we've been...
Yes, one or two, Charlie. So one question, what's the ongoing commitment to the Racegoers Club?
So I'll tell that absolute commitment to the Racegoers Club. We have been working with them through Louise Norman, our head of ownership, and her team, organising events and making sure that they are incorporated into the ROA as seamlessly as we could be. As could be. And 2024 will see a number of changes across the organisation in terms of how we look after and represent our members, and they are firmly part of our plans for going forward.
Thanks, Charlie. And another one, what's the board's policy on consulting with the ROA members on issues, and did the board consider asking the membership for its views on premierisation and or Sunday evening meetings?
Charlie.
It's a very good question. We obviously take soundings and feedback, and there's various groups that are working together. On the issue of premierisation and core, that was a industry group that worked extremely hard on the strategy, and it encompasses the bookmaking industry, the BHA, all of the participants. So you can imagine that process was very rigorous, and the strategy that came out of it was signed off ultimately by the BHA board. It's fair to say it's a trial. It's a 2-year trial. Everybody recognised that we needed to do something, that the opportunity to attract significant new investment was there. Other sports have shown that that's been able to do that, but we need a product to effectively sell, and we needed a better way of promoting and engaging with new participants, new bettors, new racegoers. So it's going to be very interesting to see how we go with this. As I referenced in my speech, the fixture list part of it has been extremely successful in terms of working together and establishing changes that in the past would have never happened. Where we now are sitting is looking at how do we promote it, what does the product look like, and it's fair to say progress on that front has been much slower than we would have anticipated, but there was a very good presentation yesterday at the BHA board, and there's elements of it which are quite exciting in terms of broadcast initiatives and other such things. So the industry has been consulted, and we'll wait to see the success or not. And the BHA last week, I think, published their KPI targets as to what will effectively be seen as a success or failure on, I think there was 11 different parameters. So it'll be very interesting to see how it pans out.
Thank you.
Yeah, a couple more, Charlie. One member's asked, as an individual owner, I feel we're being ignored as syndicates are being pushed as the only way forward. The Jockey Club racecourses give 8 badges to syndicates and 6 to individual owners. How can that be right? I pay the same amount to run my horse as they do.
Chris, may I ask you to take that one?
I wasn't expecting that. Well, I do have a lot of sympathy with Sam's position on syndicates, actually. I think syndicates are an important part of racing, and it is a good route to get people into owning racehorses that might end up owning a racehorse entirely by themselves. I think it's a difficult question, but I think you have to give some leeway to syndicates to allow them to be able to satisfy the demands of their owners. And they do have, presumably, some, in a normal syndicate, there's at least 8 owners and possibly even a lot more in some cases. Is that right?
That's great.
Yes, and I from a syndicate side, I'd say there shouldn't be more for shared ownership, but I think there should be the offering should be different. That if you're a sole owner, you get your lunches, etc. But we might have a different option. If I want to bring 15 people to the race, there's no lunches for us, but we should be able to get in free, and hopefully, but I think there shouldn't be more for syndicates, but there just should be a different and more flexible offering.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right, and that's my view. It may not necessarily be the view of everybody on the board. In general, I would probably like to see, obviously we'd all like to see race courses give more benefits to owners, whether they're syndicate owners or normal owners. I would like to see a system where there are enhanced owners to enhanced benefits to people that contribute massively to the sport. And I think the race courses should be able to do that. If you own one full horse, or maybe more than one full horse, even though it might be 2 halves or 3/4, then I think perhaps you should get an enhanced benefit in terms of ability to go racing whenever you want. And I talked in terms of the gentleman who was talking about going to Cheltenham on the Saturday. But in the same way, I do think that syndicates do need to be treated differently as well. Maybe they don't get all of the benefits that a normal owner gets, but I do think they should be in a position where they can get most of the people that have bought into that syndicate onto the racecourse when that horse is running, and I do have sympathy with them. So I don't see it really as being an either or. I do think that we can accommodate both sides and make both the whole 100% owner and the syndicate owner feel that they're being represented and that they're being welcomed appropriately on the racecourses.
And if I may, just from an executive position, we completely concur with that sentiment and agree. Charlie touched on it earlier, the irony of reduction in race day attendees over the past 12 months, year on year, and yet the average owner goes racing without a runner 21 times a year. There's a massive opportunity for racecourses here to engage better with owners at every level of the sport, and we could not be more. We couldn't be trying harder to get them to be more dynamic in the way in which that they welcome owners, whether they have a runner as a sole owner or as part of shared ownership, or even when they don't have a runner. So we completely concur, especially Sam, your sentiments there. We fully support that.
Just one final question, Charlie. We haven't heard anything today about the journey that horses take after their careers end. Could any of the board give us an update on progress in that area?
Thank you. Celia is your representative on ROR.
Retraining of racehorses is the industry's official aftercare charity for horses. At the same time, we do regard ourselves as a cradle to grave, except for when the horse is in training, when clearly the BHA and the trainer have responsibility. It's slightly like the Philip talking about zero gambling. At the moment, 99.9% of horses leave racing, are responsibly rehomed and have wonderful lives, often very long lives through to over 30, having left racing at 2 or 3. Sadly, sometimes, although the horse has left racing and gone to a wonderful home, the 3 Ds, death, divorce and debt, can result in the owner becoming unable to look after the horse, and then sometimes if the horse is less straightforward to look after, or either physically or behaviourally, things can go wrong, at which point retraining of racehorses has the vulnerable horse scheme safety net. That is very much the final resort. Before that, they have the post-racing assessment programme for horses which either the owners have left racing or died or do not have the finances to support the horse going into a new home. Many horses are retrained, go straight from the trainer to somebody in the yard, as somebody earlier mentioned. The lass who's looked after the horse or the stable staff who've looked after that horse often are very devoted to them and take them on after racing. And at that stage, Retraining Racehorses provides a framework of competitions, leagues, and other support to encourage people to rehome ex-racehorses, because there are lots of activities for you to do with them. You are not ignored if you are a happy hacker or at a very much more grassroots level. There is an education programme where people can take their horses for what are called club nights, where there are specialist instructors who do specialise in dealing with retired racehorses and the particular problems which people may face with them, to help strengthen the relationship between the rehomers and the horses. Obviously, the owner has the primary responsibility to make sure that their horse is rehomed successfully, and whatever outlay is necessary in using a professional retrainer to make that horse rehomable, that is the owner's responsibility. Your responsibility for your horse does not finish at the winning post or whenever it trails past the winning post. And nobody would expect owners to be responsible for a horse for its whole life unless they wish to be, but it is their responsibility to rehome the horse unless there are circumstances which make that impossible. And before you go off to Tattersall's and spend another £50,000 plus on another shiny new racehorse, it is your responsibility to ensure that your toy, which is not so shiny and pretty as perhaps it was when all your hopes rested on it, or the swan, which is now firmly a goose, actually goes and has a good, productive life. And as we all know, ex-racehorses do amazing things, going to Tokyo Olympics at one end of the scale, and at the other end being therapy horses, both with ex-military veterans and also going into old people's homes. So, and they are the most amazing animals, and in between they do just about everything under the sun, from carrying brides to church, side saddle, to competing and providing enormous amounts of pleasure. So the industry and the ROA in particular are very, very cognizant of all of our responsibility to ensure that retired racehorses have happy, productive, long lives.
Sam, final question then for me.
In the light of premierisation, a question for the board. Obviously, with numerous racecourses pleading poverty about what premierisation is going to do to them, but believing that the rate cards per normal race at the moment are about, for media rights, are about 30,000 a race. Is there any appetite within the ROA board to look at challenging the ownership of the fixture list and indeed the media rights, which I think there seems to be the assumption within the industry that the racecourses own these, but I strongly believe that they do not. And is there any appetite within the ROA board to throw the kitchen sink at this and take it on and create a level playing field that we so badly need within British racing?
Yes, Charlie, that's definitely one for you.
Thanks, Sam. As you know, when your time on the board, we did seek council opinion on this subject. The difficulty is obviously the cost involved and the complete disruption to the current collaborative nature of the product. What I can say is that the memorandum of understanding that the BHA signed with the racecourses, which effectively confirmed the racecourse ownership of their own fixtures, we did not sign, and we continued not to sign. In fact, that came up yesterday. From the ROA's perspective, it's a big subject. It's a big task, and I think all of us have taken the view that we're better working within the industry to try and achieve a much better prize money distribution model, and working together to sign new agreements with racecourses, as opposed to throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and frankly, we can't afford it.
And just if I may, just to finish that, Sam, in my tenure, we've looked at this position twice with two separate legal firms. This particular principle that we're looking at about the ownership of a race fixture and the participants is actually the same as many other sports as well. So what you'll find is your legal case doesn't just focus on horse racing, but you bring in all the football, the FA, rugby, tennis, cricket. They will all be involved in this because it would be a legal point of principle being challenged. So it won't just be so. It's absolutely the right question. It's absolutely the right conversation. It's absolutely we have to get more understanding as to how we can get a greater slice of the income that's being generated across the sport. But the legal opinion that we've sought twice now has been that's not one that we as an organisation should be taking forward. I'd like, therefore, to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us this morning, and I can confirm now that the 2023 Racehorse Owners Association Annual General Meeting is now concluded. And we look forward to seeing you on a racecourse soon.